Have you noticed that one hip tends to be higher than the other, or even one leg seems to be shorter than another? And this can be more noticed in photos, or if somebody points it out, or if you're standing for long periods of time that you're just shifting your weight to one side. Now, this goes by many terms. It can be a hip hike, it can be a lateral pelvic tilt, you might just have a twist in your pelvis, and ultimately what's going on is we are asymmetrical human beings. Like, we are anatomically designed to be asymmetrical. We just don't want to be so asymmetrical that there's compensation, so there's a hip hike or one leg tends to be shorter than the other. We also want to be able to shift in and out of different postures and stances, and we want to be able to mobilize our body and use it well. So you might be performing in the gym and this might be causing you pain, or you're an athlete and this is causing you pain. I'm going to show you a progression model because it's very important that we need to address what actually is going on from the root cause and then work our way up to actually make a long-lasting change. I want to make this clear because this concept seemed pretty complicated initially when I was really learning this pattern. So I want to break this down and make it super dumb simple for everyone to just fully understand this idea, because the better understanding you have, then you can start applying the fix. You can start sensing and feeling what we're actually trying to accomplish to make a long-term fix. Here's our pelvis, right? Essentially what's happening is we are more biased towards shifting our weight to our right side. And there's many reasons, I don't want to get into all of it, but essentially one reason could be our right side of our diaphragm is actually bigger and heavier than the left. Our liver is a heavy organ that sits on the right side. There's more weight and that can pull us more to the right side. Also, some say that we have more of a side bend in our spine towards the right. We're just more biased to shifting our weight to our right. What's happening here, and I'm just doing this example as if you were to be shifted to your right, or also known as right lateralized, is if we shift to our right side, we are bringing this right hip into more internal rotation. That's because our right pelvis here is going to be rotating over and shifting into more internal rotation here. This also causes this bone here, we call this the pelvic innominate bone, is going to internally rotate. And then on the left side, what's happening is it's in more external rotation. So this is where there's more of this twist going on. So when this externally rotates and the femur externally rotates, this gets pushed forwards a little bit. So one side is going to be pushed forwards into more external rotation, one side is going to be pushed back and into more internal rotation. And this is where we see the hip hike. This is what's going on. So now if this is what's going on, we can see that the right hip is actually higher than the left. Really what this is telling us is if we're always sitting in that right hip, that's telling us that we're pretty good at accepting load into that right side. But then that would mean that we're probably not as good at pushing out of that right side. So we don't have enough of external rotation and abduction to push yourself away. And then that means on the left side, we're not as good at accepting the load. So we don't have enough internal rotation of this pelvic bone and our left femur. So we need to be able to push more effectively out of the right side and accept more load more effectively on the left side. This is a protocol that you want to follow in the order that I'm showing you, because that's important not to just skip ahead. I used to do that all the time. I'm like, I can do it, that's simple, I'm going to do the most challenging exercise. It takes time to teach certain muscles to relax and chill a little bit, and then how to retrain and to facilitate other muscles to perform an action that they should be doing. So let's get started with our first exercise. For this first step, it's not actually an exercise, it's more of a fascia decompression position we're going to be doing on the right side. And the reason being is because if our right pelvis is higher than the left, then generally what happens is the pelvis that is higher, that right shoulder tends to also drop. So that's closing off more space between the shoulder and the pelvis. So we want to teach yourself how to decompress this area and breathe into that to create and maintain that space. That's going to make it more effective for our next position so that we can more effectively push out of and accept load into that other one. So let's get started with this first position. All you need for this position is a rolled up towel, and make sure you compact it pretty tight like this. And this is going to be the tool we're going to use to decompress the right side of the ribs here. So let's feel the top of the right pelvis. We're going to have the towel just above on these lower ribs. Now you can work the entire height and the entire length of the right side rib cage, but let's just start, and I'm gonna show you one position, then you can explore and have more fun on your own time here. So let's nice and slow bring this to the floor. Now, a big component with decompression is that we need to be relaxed. We can't be in more of a sympathetic state. We can't be breathing aggressively. We want to be breathing nice and slow. So the first thing is get comfortable. Bend your knees, rest your head in your hand, get a pillow, and let's start by breathing in and out through the nose. So I want you to exhale fully, bring those ribs down, and we're gonna start from this position here. As you inhale, I want you to feel that your entire rib cage is expanding. Initiate that with your belly, so your belly will expand a bit as your rib cage starts to expand, and that's gonna be creating more space where the towel is, and that's gonna be expanding this side of the rib cage. As we're directing our air and our breath there, it's gonna help own that space. So all I want you to do is hang out here for 3 to 5 minutes because we need to give ourselves time to decompress, or else if we just spend a minute or so here, it's not really gonna do a whole lot for us. So the more time you spend, generally the better, but pairing this with other correctives and in this progression is gonna be really, really beneficial. So obviously, there's a little bit of pain here. There might be some discomfort for some of you, and that's normal. So all we want to do is breathe through those sensations. So whenever it's too intense, you can ease off slightly, reconnect at a less intensity. If it's not intense enough and you want to get deeper, it's kind of that feel so good kind of pain, but for some of us, it just doesn't feel that amazing. That's telling us there's a lot of compression here and we need to work through it. So you can very, very slowly search to the front. You can even search to the back. But again, the slower you move, the deeper you're gonna get, so don't rush this position. Once you spent about 3 to 5 minutes, you can nice and slowly exhale up and out, and we'll move on to the next step. If you liked that sensation and approach of fascia decompression, you noticed a change, then you can check out our Block Therapy Starter Package. It's a full body approach. It's 9 classes in different durations, also with some corrective exercises to really accelerate your progress. To learn more, the link is in the description below. For this next step, we're gonna be doing more of an exercise. This is a corrective exercise to help bring our pelvis into more of a neutral alignment, but this is also gonna teach us from going from this to this. We're pretty much doing the opposite, but focusing more on the left hip so that we're pulling it more back into that socket, into more internal rotation. We're shifting out and accepting that load more into that left side. So let's get started. All we need for this exercise is a rolled up towel or a foam roller or even like a ball to place between your thighs and a wall. And to get into this, we're gonna be on our back. And let's have our hips at 90 degrees and our knees at 90 degrees. This will be placed between the thighs, approximately midway or even a little bit higher if you would like. Now, I want you to feel the inner heel and the ball of the big toe foot contacts on both feet. Now, as we just gently squeeze this towel or the object between your thighs, all I want you to start off doing is exhale fully and really bring those low ribs down. And this is just gonna help position our rib cage and our pelvis into more of a neutral alignment. When you exhale completely, you're gonna feel your side abs engaging and just really let that air out. At the end range of the exhalation, that's when you feel the side abs kicking on, not your six pack, your front abs, your side. And lock that in place as we are in this position, and then we're gonna be breathing more throughout the rib cage. Now with our feet, I want you to pull down towards the floor, but without actually sliding or moving your feet. It's just the intention, so we're feeling our hamstrings are kicking on. Now, if I were just to stay here, feeling the hamstrings and my pelvis is just barely coming off of the floor, I still feel my low back pushing into the floor. This here is just gonna help create more of a neutral pelvis while creating more internal rotation of both of our hips. Now, if we want to do an asymmetrical exercise, because this is an asymmetrical pattern that we're working with, what we're gonna do is if my right hip is hiked, I'm gonna be wanting to pull my left hip back and down. So what I'm doing here is pushing my right knee up towards the ceiling. My right hip will be following that into more external rotation. And then my left hip, I'm gonna be pulling down. And this is not a lot of exertion here. This is about a 2, 3 out of 10, that's it. We're not trying to force or try so hard. With this left side, we're gonna be pulling that hip down towards the floor. That knee's gonna be following, and I want you to gently pull in more so with that left leg into the towel than the right. So really it's that left leg, but don't lose that contact of the foot and using your hamstrings to pull down. You'll probably feel more hamstring now on that left side. So again, we are shifting like this. We're shifting our hips like this, and I want you to hold this for about 8 even to 10 breaths, while again, exhaling fully, locking that down. Inhale, feel the back and the rib cage is expanding. So you will feel more of your left low back making contact with the floor compared to the right, and that is good. So as I mentioned, do about 8 to 10 breaths and about 2 to 3 sets before moving on to the next exercise. For step 3, we're gonna be doing a corrective exercise to help us push more out of that right side, but also gonna bias more internal rotation while our bottom leg is gonna be at 90 degrees of hip flexion, which is also biasing more internal rotation on that left side. And this is gonna be creating more external rotation and abduction with the right side to help us push out of this side. All you're gonna need for this exercise is a wall and your good old body weight. So if your right hip is higher than the left, then you're gonna be on your left side. If your left hip is higher, you're gonna be on your right side. So I'm gonna be on my left side here, and I'm gonna have my hip at around 60 degrees of hip flexion. If I were to bring this to 90, it's gonna be a lot more challenging because my right leg's gonna be even higher up on the wall. So let's start at around 60, and let's have that foot positioned on the wall. And then this right leg, I want you to primarily feel the inner heel and the ball of the big toe contacts on the wall to help mimic the floor here. Don't lose the lateral portion of your 5th metatarsal head here. And as we're here, let's exhale fully, bring those low ribs up slightly. So those left low ribs, I want you to contract. Exhale fully and feel that you're creating a bit of a tunnel so you can slide your hand under. You should be able to feel that that is engaged. As you do that, that's pushing my right hip down, which is going to help apply more force into the wall. So now that I'm exhaled fully and I'm holding this, you're gonna hold this the entire time. So this is a left side ab workout. That's gonna help me rotate more to the left. My left hip is into more internal rotation, and then my right leg is into more abduction, pushing out of the side and external rotation. So all we're gonna do is hang out here, keeping everything engaged, pushing slightly into the wall, about a 2, 3 out of 10 with your right foot, and you're gonna stay here for about 8 to 10 breaths. Now, once you finish one set, you wanna do a total of 2 to 3 before we move on to the next exercise. For step 4, we're gonna be doing an exercise where we are now standing, and we're gonna be focusing more on that right leg to really push through to that right side and externally rotate to get out of that right side. So now we're connecting more of the foot with the knee, with the hip and the pelvis to really help us get out of that right side, and we're adding load. So this is really gonna help us cement this alignment. We will need a step up platform, approximately this height. If this is too high, you can always start a little bit lower, and then a weight just for one side. I'll be explaining that in a sec. My right leg is gonna be on the platform if my right hip is more hiked, and then just flip that if your left hip is more hiked. Now I want us to feel the inner heel and ball the big toe reference. So now once we're here, let's make sure that our pelvis is neutral. Let's make sure the hip, knee, and the toes are aligned, so the knee's over approximately that second toe. And now let's just come up into this neutral position. If I were to drop this, the right hip is more hiked, the left hip is more dropped, so we want to do the opposite. Let's bring that left hip up a little bit higher. You could even stay here, to be honest, for 30 seconds, 10 breaths, and get used to this. This will help a lot as well. But for this exercise, I have the weight in my right hand. This is gonna help me push more out of that right side. I'm pushing away from the weight. So we're doing the step down variation. Now that we're in this neutral starting position, I'm gonna bend that knee, keeping that pelvis neutral, keeping myself aligned and straight. I'm dropping my left heel to the floor, and I'm pushing now through the floor, through that hip, and I'm pushing so much that I feel that right hip now is dropping, and now I'm bringing this left hip up, and I'm hiking it. So I am doing the inverse of our existing hip hike. So now I'm crunching slightly with those left oblique muscles, which is also going to help me rotate more to that left side. And I'm also bringing my knee into about 60. You can even bring it into 90 degrees of hip flexion. One more for fun. Exhale, push through, drop that right hip, bring this left one up, hold, and that's the exercise. So do about 8 to 10 repetitions, 2 to 3 sets. Take your time with this. You don't have to rush it, play around, but this is going to be a really effective exercise. I hope you enjoyed these positions and exercises. Make sure you follow it in the progressive order. That is super important. I can't emphasize that enough. I used to always think that I could just jump to the most challenging, the last exercise, because I was special for whatever reason, but really we need to follow a progression. It's here for a reason. So as always, here's the routine to follow. We started off with the block therapy fascia decompression position on that right side rib cage, spent about 3 to 5 minutes there. Then we moved into the 90-90 hip lift with a hip shift, spend about 8 to 10 soft, slow breaths, and perform 2 to 3 sets. And then we moved on to the sideline hip abduction, stay there for about 8 to 10 breaths and do 2 to 3 sets. And then we went into a variation of a step down and do about 8 to 10 repetitions and about 2 to 3 sets. If you have any questions or comments, leave them, of course, in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, because I have a lot of content that's going to be coming soon, and we'll see you in the next video.